The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like callus. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman.
What's up? Welcome in to yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show, a very special edition of the Ben Garcia Show. If you know, you know. If you don't, we'll get to it in just a moment. But before we tackle any subjects, which was a jam-packed NFL weekend, we just want to say thank you for making us a part of your day. However you listen, however you watch, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio app for free, or you want to put a face to the voice on YouTube, we appreciate that as well. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, or don't do anything and just enjoy the show. I'm not a beggar. I'm not a chooser. I'm just happy you are here. Huge, jam-packed NFL show, all NFL show today. It was a crazy weekend. We saw Sean Payton and the Broncos get humiliated against the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel. Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill and company, 70-20. Just an abysmal performance by the Broncos. So that leaves to bear the question, what is a worse deal? What was a worse trade? Russell Wilson coming from the Seahawks to the Broncos, or Sean Payton getting traded for multiple picks from the New Orleans Saints? We'll also talk Mike McDaniel. I've got some thoughts on him. Has he surpassed Kyle Shanahan, the guy who he used to be assisting in San Francisco, Santa Clara, 49er land? And also, the Jets, their season is spiraling down the drain. We will talk about that. We will talk about some solutions. But if you know me, if you've been on my social media, we're going to tackle this first because I've been chomping at the bit to go right at this subject. So with that being said, let me make a quick wardrobe change. So I was not going to talk the Dallas Cowboys this week. I was going to talk about nothing more than anything else in the NFL because there's nothing left to say at this point about the Dallas Cowboys. They've been underachieving for years. I've been trying to warn their fan base just how fraudulent their team is. I was called a hater. I was ostracized while you guys were rah-rahing about beating Daniel Jones in a tsunami and Zach Wilson after coming off one of the most emotional games on Monday Night Football in which they lost their Hall of Fame quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and Zach Wilson sucks. You guys were rah-rahing. You guys had won the Super Bowl. You guys were on top of the world. People came in my mentions and were so upset with me that I had the audacity to say, yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFC East. It's not hate. It's just truth. In my opinion, they have the better roster still. The pass rush is still there. Their coach, still better than Mike McCarthy. The quarterback and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, the Grand Canyon in gap of skill. So yeah, I said the Eagles were better. And my mentions have been blowing up ever since I dropped a few Dallas Cowboys subject videos. I wasn't coming at the Cowboys. I wasn't telling them they sucked. I even admitted they're a good football team. Not good enough to win the Super Bowl, and I was ostracized. I was told I didn't know anything I was talking about. People were telling me, you know what? Maybe not everyone should have a podcast. I was every name in the book that you could be called. Dallas Cowboy fans were in my mentions all weekend for the past few weeks on end. Dallas Cowboys commenting, messaging me, telling me I have no idea what I'm talking about. Although I've been preaching this, hitting the table for weeks now about how fraudulent the Dallas Cowboys have been. I've been doing this for years because they don't have a quarterback that can carry them when they need to be carried. Their defense is mostly overstated. It just is. I'm sorry to admit it to you, but it just is. I'm sorry to break it to you. I'm not impressed by beating Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones. And I wouldn't have been impressed if you beat Josh Dobbs. But man, I guess the Wi-Fi must be out in Dallas. I guess it just collectively, whatever they have, CenturyLink over there, whatever brand internet that Dallas carries, I guess the internet in Dallas just went out for the weekend, and it's still out at the time that I'm recording this video, this podcast. Because I have heard crickets from the loyal Dallas Cowboys fan base that has been in my mentions for weeks on end, telling me that there is no idea. I have no idea what I'm talking about. That Dak Prescott's awesome. Mike McCarthy's awesome. It's so great here. We're beating up on bad teams. We haven't been battle tested yet. And you know what? My mistake. I said your first real test is going to come in the link, and I believe week 8, week 9 against the Philadelphia Eagles, but I was wrong. Turns out it was my Arizona Cardinals coming in to State Farm Stadium, playing against my Cardinals, Josh Dobbs, Jonathan Gannon, right? You can't coach. Pew, 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 Jonathan Gannon, not good at the mic, not good at the podium. Social media clips, Jonathan Gannon can't coach. Team's not good. And I told Cowboy fans, hey, just so you know, this Cardinal team, they're better than you think. But you marched in to State Farm Stadium, heads held high, arrested some offensive linemen because you thought you were better than you were. And you didn't want to listen to old friend Ben over your old best friend Benjamin coming in on the show saying, hey, the Dallas Cowboys, they're not as good as you think. No, you just want to hear what you want to be told. And now I'm going to rip your team a new one. Because my Arizona Cardinals, the tanking Arizona Cardinals, put a beat down on the Dallas Cowboys. And you know what? I usually don't take victory laps. I usually don't do the fanboy thing. But I'm going to rub some salt in the wound for Dallas Cowboy fans. I suggested a few weeks ago, hey, Mike McCarthy, not great in time management, not a good play caller. I liked Kellen Moore more than everyone else. And then Cowboy fans, you don't know, you didn't watch the games. You didn't watch the games. Kellen Moore was losing us games. It wasn't Dak Prescott. It wasn't Mike McCarthy. It was Kellen Moore, so we ran him out of town. Meanwhile, the Chargers offense looks really good. Really, really good. And what did Mike McCarthy do? Went 1-5 in the red zone with things like going for it on 4th down when you could have just kicked the field goal, bring it down to a little bit more of a possession there. Then you have Mike McCarthy running the ball with 5 minutes left to go on the clock, down 12 points. That tells you what the Dallas Cowboys think of their quarterback. They think of their quarterback as, you know what? We got to lean on our run game here because our quarterback's just not that good. He's not able to carry us when we need to be carried. Begging for flags, the audacity for a team that had like 13 accepted penalties. That doesn't even count for the penalties that they didn't accept. The Dallas Cowboys are so fraudulent. This defense that I've been told that is so raucous, absolutely abysmal on Sunday. The defensive line, Micah Parsons, right? Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. Oh, these guys are going to eat, right? Paris Johnson ate those dudes alive. The offensive line completely dominated aside from a couple of sacks that you just have to let go of because that Dallas Cowboys front is so talented, right? Absolutely dominated at the point of attack. CeeDee Lamb begging for flags, begging and not even going for the ball. That should infuriate every Cowboy fan. The audacity of CeeDee Lamb, a guy who is not a top 5 receiver, begging for a flag, getting absolutely locked up all game by a 6th round rookie in Keytrell Clark. A rookie locking up your star wide receiver, pouting because he's not getting the ball, pouting because he's not getting flags. The Dallas Cowboys absolutely embarrassed themselves on Sunday. And all the Dallas Cowboy fans out there calling me every which name in the book, you should be embarrassed too. Because your team is not that good. And you know what? Maybe that makes me an enemy of Cowboys fans. I tried to be a Dallas Cowboy truther. I don't hate your team. I don't have enough time in my day to hate your team. I was beating this drum for over a year now. Hey, Dak Prescott, He's not an 8 to 10 quarterback in this league. He's probably 12, 13, because one of the biggest things I look of in my quarterbacks is how do they do under duress? How do they do in high pressure situations? How do they do in high leverage situations? What do they do when the defense knows you have to pass? Dak Prescott throwing the interception to Kaiser White, triple covered, was so ironically Dak Prescott. It hurts. Now the Dallas Cowboys are what they are, and we all saw it. A fraudulent team. The offensive line thinking you can just rest players? This is an NFL team. The Cardinals, you must have not read the scouting report, are pretty damn good. They took the Washington Commanders down to the wire. They should have won that game. A week ago when they played the Giants up 20-0 at the half, they should have won that game. And what they do to the Dallas Cowboys, they closed it out. It's embarrassing. It is just flat out embarrassing for Cowboy fans. And like I said before, I guess the Wi-Fi just went out in Dallas, right? Because all the Cowboys fans in my mentions completely vanished. Completely gone from existence. Didn't hear from any of them. Didn't hear about the rah-rah, we them boys. No. You lost to my Arizona Cardinals, a tanking Arizona Cardinals team. You were dominated on all fronts, and that's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys are and their fan base right now. We're better than we think we are. We're a team that we don't need to play all of our players, and I don't want to hear anything about you not having 3 offensive linemen. This defensive front, you lost to without their best player in Budda Baker. They didn't have Kyler Murray either. They didn't have their best quarterback. Arguably the most important position on offense. And then maybe the second, third most important piece on your defense ahead of the secondary, and Budda Baker wasn't there. Dak Prescott in pressure couldn't make it happen. DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, for the most part, aside from a sack or two, absolutely invisible. The Arizona Cardinals beat the Dallas Cowboys on one thing only: effort, not talent. Dallas Cowboys are way more talented. You list the 10 best players in this game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals. There's not a single Cardinal on that list. Dak Prescott was outplayed by Josh Dobbs. Let that sink in. Outplayed by Josh Dobbs, a guy who was probably going to get cut in Cleveland until the Cardinals handed them a 5th-round pick. The Dallas Cowboys should be embarrassed. Until the Dallas Cowboys can prove it to us, like I said in the playoffs, they're a fraudulent team. And that's all there is to it. So stop telling yourself the lie every single year. We them boys, we're winning the Super Bowl, right? No. And you know what? I can't lie. I relished in it a little bit. It was fun to watch. It was fun, although it took a little bit out of the tanking sales for the Arizona Cardinals getting a better draft pick. It was worth it. Because the Dallas Cowboys fan base needed to be humbled. The Dallas Cowboys needed to be humbled. And next time you walk into a game after beating 2 subpar quarterbacks, and I'm putting it nicely, have a little bit more of a grip. Maybe play your best players. Maybe don't rest players because you think you can just steamroll through this. The Dallas Cowboys should be embarrassed. The Dallas Cowboys fan base should be embarrassed. Maybe that can change. Maybe the Cowboys can figure it out in the rest of the season. But over the past 2 decades, they haven't been a Super Bowl contender. The Dallas Cowboys still are not Super Bowl contenders. And Dallas Cowboy fans, if you want, I know you were in my mentions, commenting, liking, saying whatever you wanted to say against me. My DMs are open to an apology. My Arizona Cardinals are open to an apology. Not big into the fanboy stuff. Didn't want to wear a jersey, but it just felt right. And I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm done beating up on you Dallas Cowboy fans. I'll never lie to you or say something just to get clicks. Everything I say, I wholeheartedly believe. Otherwise, I wouldn't put it on social media. I wouldn't put it in a podcast format. But call it what it is. I'm a Dallas Cowboys truther, not a hater. I don't care enough about your team to actively root against them. The Dallas Cowboys needed to get it together. And go Cardinals. All right, now that I'm done acting like an incompetent buffoon wearing a jersey, I'm actually not a big jersey guy anymore. I don't know why. I'm 25 years old. I'm not really into wearing another man's jersey on my back. It just feels weird at this point. Feels a little like maybe this should probably just be for kids. No hate. If you want to wear a jersey, wear a jersey. I don't really care. At this point in my life, I'm more so not really into the jersey gang. But now that I'm done absolutely pummeling the Dallas Cowboys and their fan base and absolutely humbling them, here's something that I wanted to talk about. And newsflash, the Denver Broncos stink. We saw that on Sunday. We saw them getting absolutely humiliated, losing by 50 points. You know, the Denver Broncos stink. They're really bad. And that's not really what I want to harp on. We know the Dolphins are really good. We know the Russell Wilson deal. We haven't really harped on a ton, but we will now on the Sean Payton trade. You know, none of this is new. We've been on this for over a year. Russell Wilson, on this show, we've been on it for over a year now. He's not very good. He's washed. It's tough to say. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Don't really feel that bad for the guy. He's making $40-something million a year, $50 million a year. Russell Wilson's washed. What I do want to harp on is Sean Payton, because this is a guy who is talking a huge game. Sean Payton, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't want Sean Payton as the head coach of the Cardinals. If I would say that I didn't want, I'd just be lying. Everyone could pull up so many receipts. I wanted Sean Payton here in Arizona. I thought it'd be good for the culture. I thought it'd be good on offense. But Sean Payton now, I'm kind of learning after a few weeks, is a weird blend of old school and new school. New school being, yeah, he's been in the league for a really long time, but his offenses are normally really good, high-powered. He's worked with a lot of quarterbacks. One year he went like 6-0 with Teddy Bridgewater. Then you have Drew Brees, a Hall of Famer, worked with Jameis Winston for a stint. All of that was awesome from Sean Payton. He's a real new school, regenerative mind when it comes to the offensive world. But then there's kind of the old school. He's chippy. He's brash. He's a really demanding, rough around the edges, which is fine. Some people demand greatness, and they demand it from a certain level that some people are uncomfortable with. Not me, but some people, and that's perfectly okay too. I mean, Sean Payton at one point banned Gilligan hats from his team from where... I don't understand that. Banning Gilligan hats from his team from wearing them. Again, there's the old school to him, the harsh, brittle side, hurt your feelings type of thing. You know, hate you now, love you later type of coach. But now, Sean Payton's got egg all over his face. The Denver Broncos are a real-life tire fire. And it begs the question now, which is the worst trade? Russell Wilson from Seattle to the Broncos. We're not going to talk just the deal. The contract obviously is way worse with Russell Wilson, but just focus on the trade. 2 first-round picks, guys like Noah Fant going over, Shelby Harris, I believe, the defensive tackle who had an underrated year the year before, went over to Seattle, not too sure how he's doing now. And now let's evaluate that, right? Bad trade. And then you look over at the Denver Broncos. Remember, they had to trade for Sean Payton. They gave up a first and a second-round pick for the former Super Bowl head coach. And it doesn't look great right now. And I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. Which one's worse? First and a second-round pick for a head coach? 2 firsts, a second, or a third, or whatever it was for Russell Wilson. I mean, I heard it earlier today on the show I work with Jody Ayler on The Drive. Here on Fox Sports 910. There you go. Shameless plug, 6 to 10 a.m. You hear me on that sometimes. You can justify, and I totally believe when he said this, you can justify going and trading a bunch for a quarterback. Maybe not the contract, but can you really justify giving up a first-round pick, a second-round pick for a head coach who has been just awful so far? Losing by 50 points, giving up 70 points, that's an effort issue. That's not a just schematical issue. There is a real drift between Sean Payton and the coaching staff and the players. It's just really bad. And at this point, they're going to have to try something new soon. Sean Payton's deal is worse than Russell Wilson's trade details-wise. Obviously, the contracts, much different. Coaches' contracts don't even count against the salary cap. But here's a really funny fact that I learned. Last year, Nathaniel Hackett was 2-1 through 3 games with a point differential of +7. Sean Payton this year is 0-3 and has a -53 differential. I learned that today again on The Drive with Jody Ayler, Fox Sports 910 at 6:10 a.m. Again, shameless plug, you'll hear me on there. 0-3 with a -53 point differential. Nathaniel Hackett was 2-1 +7 point differential. Guys, I mean, could it be any more ironic? Sean Payton openly came out, bashed Nathaniel Hackett, and said that it was one of the worst coaching jobs he had ever seen, ever witnessed. What does that mean for you, Sean Payton? Is Sean Payton outdated? Is Sean Payton, could he get ran out of town in a few years? I mean, it's abysmal right now. You can't get rid of Russell Wilson. It's impossible. His contract, I mean, at this point, I believe kicks in next year. It's an abysmal deal. It's abysmal all the way around for the Denver Broncos. At this point, you have to tell yourself, the contract for Sean Payton is worse than Russell. Sorry, the trade for Sean Payton is worse than the trade for Russell Wilson as of right now. Of course, that can change, but the disconnect between his players and his coaches, losing by 70, losing by 50, letting them score 70, that's going to sting for the Denver Broncos for a long time. For years, people will hold up that score as a meme for years. The Denver Broncos have a real issue on their hands, and it's not fixable. I don't know what they can do. Can you take out Russell Wilson and put in whoever their backup is right now? I believe the guy who, Jarrett Stidham, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you need a spark. The Denver Broncos are flailing, and they are drowning, and I don't think there's any boat coming to save them anytime soon. From a completely dysfunctional team to probably the best team in the NFL in the Miami Dolphins, you almost have to talk the Miami Dolphins. It's sacrilegious. It's blasphemy at this point if you don't talk about the Miami Dolphins scoring 70 points, and they absolutely could have scored more points. I mean, they were hitting the mercy on the Denver Broncos. I mean, they easily could have hit every NFL record. It wasn't close. If you watched the game, you probably didn't because it was so bad. At some point, you were just flicking on anything else to watch than seeing the Denver Broncos get curb stomped on live national TV for everyone to see. This is where I want to go with this. Mike McDaniel might just be the best coach in the NFL. I understand that's a hot take. I'm not so sure I believe that. But Mike McDaniel's a top 3 coach in the NFL, right? So Andy Reid, and then you have Kyle Shanahan, and then you have Mike McDaniel. I want to talk about those two. Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of praise. And to be fair to Kyle Shanahan, he does win a lot of games, although he really struggles winning the big game. He really struggles holding on to leads. We've seen 28-3. We've seen him against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, below a 10-point lead, lose that Super Bowl. You can argue Kyle Shanahan should have 2 Super Bowl rings. About much you can argue about that Aaron Gordon should have 2 dunk contest championships. If you know, you know. But it's a little bit the Tom Brady effect for Mike McDaniel, where everything works. It doesn't matter what turbulence there are. They trade a ton of picks for Tyreek Hill. Doesn't matter, although they took some criticism for that. Although I will say a lot of people did say, you know what, it's Tyreek Hill. Top 5 receiver in the league at that point. Top 10 receiver in the league at that point. Now he might be top 1. Raheem Mostert just works. This is a guy that's always been injured. They plug and play a 3rd-round rookie who gets, 200 yards, multiple touchdowns against what last year was a real orange-crushed Denver Broncos defense. He misses some offensive linemen in the first couple weeks. Doesn't matter. Everything works for Mike McDaniel, and I believe that more so things always work for Mike McDaniel than they do with Kyle Shanahan. I'm willing to argue Mike McDaniel is a better coach than Kyle Shanahan, but just doesn't have the accolades yet. I'm willing to go into the future and say, yeah, Mike McDaniel, he won more Super Bowls than Kyle Shanahan. Mike McDaniel, he made it to more AFC championship games. He won more championship games on the AFC side than Kyle Shanahan did on the NFC side. I'd be willing to believe that. If you came from the future and told me that Mike McDaniel completely outshined Kyle Shanahan, I wouldn't be surprised. Kyle Shanahan's a good coach, and he's won with a lot of guys. But do you remember what people were saying about Tua Tagovailoa before Mike McDaniel came into the picture? People were ready to write Tua Tagovailoa off with a good coach. Brian Flores is a good coach, not on the offensive side, but Brian Flores is looked upon as a good coach in the NFL, and he will get another head coaching job. Mike McDaniel comes in, puts up what? Like a 700-play clip of all of Tua's best plays and shows him just how good he is. Tua Tagovailoa said, I thought I sucked. Mike McDaniel gets in the picture, fixes everything. Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan. Is it possible Mike McDaniel is on the horizon of surpassing Kyle Shanahan, a guy in which was his assistant at one time? You know, if my team, the Arizona Cardinals, for those of you who don't know, I live in Arizona. I'm a Cardinal fan, unfortunately at times, although not this past weekend. That felt great. If you ask me, who would I want to coach the Cardinals? Mike McDaniel or Kyle Shanahan? I know I'm taking heat here. But if I was an NFL GM and I can pick what coach I want coaching my team, I think I'm taking Mike McDaniel over Kyle Shanahan. I think I'm taking Mike McDaniel over every coach in the National Football League not named Andy Reid. I mean, players are just running butt naked wide open. Dudes are Tua Tagovailoa, although yes, he's shown that he's able to make those tough throws. A lot of the time, he's just throwing to wide open wide receivers. I mean, Mike McDaniel, the way he schemes up plays, there's always motion. He's moving guys around. He's disguising looks. It's like this weird combination between Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. And then my argument is, you look at Kyle Shanahan, the type of football he plays isn't necessarily sustainable. We see Elijah Mitchell, Raheem Mostert before CMC got there, constantly getting injured. It's that smash mouth brand of football. George Kittle was already injured this year. Deebo Samuel's got a rib injury now. Nick Bosa at times, a little dinged up here and there. The Kyle Shanahan offense, you can argue, it is totally fair to argue at this point, no matter what Niner fan says. It's a little smash mouth football. You know, sometimes it can get players hurt because they're playing grueling in the trenches type football. It's a very old school type of football with, again, a new school twist because Kyle Shanahan's very good at dialing up the passing game. But Mike McDaniel's offense, it is so beautifully constructed. And again, I would say it's a blend between an Andy Reid and a Kyle Shanahan-like influence since he was there in San Francisco for those years. Mike McDaniel might be the second best coach in the NFL, but he's absolutely top 3, and he's climbing the charts. One more story on the day. The New York Jets lose again to the New England Patriots. I think it's like 12 years now that the New York Jets are incapable of beating the New England Patriots, maybe 11, 12 years. Doesn't matter. I know it's a decade plus. That's not good. It looks bad. It's almost like a guaranteed win. Julian Edelman joked on the herd that he was a Jets fan too because he got a win and he had really good stats in those games. It's kind of comical, although you do feel for Jets fans who have just been waiting for a long time, a decade plus, to really be relevant again in the NFL. And at this point, that leads me with one conclusion. Zach Wilson sucks. There, mic drop. Like, we don't. It's not a newsflash, right? No one in here was still holding out hope that Zach Wilson was going to be good. He's not good. He's not good enough to be a backup. I'm not so sure like he's even good enough to be a third stringer. Zach Wilson is just really bad at the game of football, at least at the professional level. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, listen, the Jets, be proactive, give up more picks. It's going to hurt. Go get Kyler Murray. Just go get Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals, overpay for him. The Cardinals will be tanking. You got to make it worth their while, and you didn't do that, and I understand it. It was already a slim chance to begin with. I'm not going to really harp on the fact that they didn't go get Kyler Murray, give up 2 first-round picks, and make everyone happy as the Cardinals go tank, but that's officially out the window. The Cardinals are not tanking. They're a lot better than we thought, especially at that point when I made the video. We just know the Arizona Cardinals, they're better than they are, and now the Kyler Murray thing just seems preposterous. It's crazy. It's not going to happen. I thought, you know what? Gardner Minshew, he just had a good week against the Ravens. He's more than capable. He's a lot better than Zach Wilson. And, I understand Gardner Minshew as a longtime starter wasn't amazing. He wasn't great. And he's probably not going to win you a Super Bowl. And that's probably the only reason why you would trade for Gardner Minshew. At this point, and we've seen this kind of float around, I'm not going to act like I'm the first person. Oh, big brain move. I know exactly what's going on. I don't. But I am going to follow suit here because it doesn't make a lot of sense. The Jets need to go get Kirk Cousins. The Vikings are 0-3. The Minnesota Vikings are absolutely flailing. They are not going to make the playoffs. There's only been one team since, I believe, 2000 who has made the playoffs after starting 0-3. Do you know it? I'll give you a second. 1, 2, 3. 2018 Houston Texans. There's your bar trivia if you go into a sports trivia night later on this week and they ask you that question. Was the only team that has been 0-3 and made the playoffs over the last 15 years. Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson and company. Very weird year. AFC South wasn't very good, but I digress. The Vikings are flailing. Kirk Cousins wants to win. We saw on quarterback, he literally has a mantle made already for a Super Bowl trophy. Kirk Cousins wants to win. And the New York Jets do make sense. And I think the New York Jets should absolutely go get Kirk Cousins. Guys, this team is too talented. It's not right. It almost feels immoral if you're the front office to not go out there and at least give your team a chance to win. And Kirk Cousins, he's probably not going to win you a Super Bowl, especially in an AFC where you got to go through Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa looks like an MVP candidate right now. Who knows if Joe Burrow and the Bengals can get it figured out, or whoever else in the AFC. Lamar Jackson, it's loaded over there. But you have to give your team a fighting chance. Go give up a second rounder. Go give up a third rounder. I don't know what it's going to take to get Kirk Cousins. Maybe a second rounder is an overpay. But a mid-round pick, go make it happen. This team is too talented. Garrett Wilson, guys like Alan Lazard, good players on this team, good veterans in Randall Cobb. The offensive line needs work. Dalvin Cook is a good second-string back. Breece Hall is a good every down back, although we know he's still trying to get his legs under him. The defense is just, awesome. Robert Saleh's got those guys humming. But that brings me over to Robert Saleh. If I'm Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, I'm fighting for my job here, guys. Joe Douglas has made a lot of dumb moves as the general manager. Oh, yeah, he's done a lot of cool things like going and getting some good late-round players. Breece Hall is a good pick. Sauce Gardner's a good pick. Zach Wilson was abysmal. This is just one of the issues for the New York Jets. They haven't been competitive in a few years, and if you have Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh still there, heads are going to roll. If you don't make the playoffs, if you have another abysmal season, saying we didn't have Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry, is not going to cut it in New York. It's just not going to cut it. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are fighting for their lives. Go and get Kirk Cousins. Give your team a chance to win. And if you go get Kirk Cousins, especially after the year he had last year and the year he's having this year, you could make the playoffs with Kirk Cousins. You might even win a game with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has a playoff win on his resume. It's not like he's one of these quarterbacks who's never won a game in the playoffs. It makes sense. But if you take it over to the Kirk Cousins side, there's a lot of reasons why he wouldn't want to go there. He has a family, a house in Minnesota. You don't want to up and move your family to New York for 6 months. He's got a no-trade clause last year in his contract. And also, does it bode well for him as a possible free agent to go out there as a quarterback behind a bad offensive line? He's still trying to make money here. And if he can't get the ball out in time, he could veto that trade too. And also, Kirk Cousins ain't replacing Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is coming through that door in 6-7 months. And Kirk Cousins ain't replacing him. That doesn't bode well for Kirk Cousins. But if you're the New York Jets, you do your best sales pitch to Kirk Cousins because you are flailing. You are on a sinking ship, and there are not a lot of life rafts available, meaning there are not a lot of quarterbacks available to come and save you. The New York Jets are flailing hard, and their last chance and their last effort to really turn this season around is going and getting Kirk Cousins. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tapping into the Ben Garcia Show. Whether you tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, for free on the iHeartRadio app, or you're one of those people that's like, you know what? No, I've been listening for a while. I want to put a face to the voice. I want to watch you give your rants and act like a buffoon doing it, and you are doing so on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a thumbs up, as they say. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on any of the other 3 platforms I mentioned before. We appreciate it. Or you don't do any of that stuff and you just listen. That is also awesome too. I'll be back next week to talk more NFL. Who knows? Maybe some NBA. Maybe Damian Lillard gets traded. Maybe my Phoenix Suns are a part of that trade. Would love to give an opinion on that. I hope the Dallas Cowboys win for their sake, because if they lose to Mac Jones and the Patriots next week, oh man, I will be insufferable, but I would like to keep them out of my show for a week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back next week. And until next week, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.